Good morning, welcome to Business Focus program. Today, very interesting topic, especially for employees, but also for employers, because we're going to talk about well-being for zero. Today, my guest is Or Hever, CEO of Move for Life, lifestyle coach with 15 years of experience on the market in Poland, but also in other places around the world. So we're going to exchange the practices, the best practices, but also advice, how to start, how to redefine maybe workplace practices in the workplace. Well, so let's maybe start with the brief introduction of yourself, Or, because it will be interesting also to hear what are you doing in Poland.
Thank you. This is usually the first question Poles ask me, why? What are you doing here? And I always say, why not? I think it's a lovely country. I met my wife here. We have an amazing daughter. And my grandfather is Polish, so I see a lot of good things about Poland. And also I feel like some Poles need to be really more proud of themselves and what you built here. So I studied physical education back home in Israel, and then I wanted something else, and I found a medical university in Poznan and graduated from the physiotherapy program there, and then started to work in different clinics. I naturally like to help people, and one of my ways to do it on a big scale is really getting into the corporate world. I was never part of the corporate world, but I feel like after probably 2,000 interviews with individuals, I know it a bit better.
Mm-hmm. And of course, apart from, being engaged in different type of clinics, you also activate expats communities around Poland.
Exactly.
That's how we met. Fantastic. Okay, so I think it would be good to start maybe with the definition of well-being, but let's focus maybe on this context of the relations between employer and employee, so workplace context.
Sure. So I really think it's important to speak in the same language. And especially with well-being, it's something we need to define because each person will define it a bit differently. Well-being for me is really taking care of the good physical, mental, social, emotional, financial health of the individual and the company. And because companies are composed of individuals, these two are directly connected. And a lot of times I feel that there is sometimes disconnect between management, the employer, and the employees, especially in this regards. I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit later. So well-being is something that in the end of the day should benefit both sides and should be holistic in nature.
Yes, and I guess, the market of this type of benefit services around that topic is growing. So we would normally expect that this is actually supporting and is working well, both for employees, managers and employees. But at the same time, we know, for example, recent studies for Oxford universities that actually pose a big question whether it's really effective, whether all those benefits, especially in the mental areas, are really something that truly supports employees. So on one hand, the spendings are quite significant, as we observe. On the other hand, we can see that maybe they are not well adjusted. So what are your observations and maybe why they don't work, if you agree with this?
So yes, first of all, I agree. I think there's a lot of optimization needed in order to really improve the engagement and satisfaction with these services. I mean, let's take a bit step back and understand how it started in the last few years. So during the pandemic, there was a rush to introduce quick solutions. It wasn't a gradual building of the proper infrastructure and processes, how to engage people. Companies were looking for something quick, something fast, something cheap, and they started to implement it. And then you see the rise of this new generation of different benefits and programs and platforms and apps, and this will be important in a second. But it wasn't through a really careful consideration of what is the value proposition for the employee. And then what you see a lot of times, first of all, is a very narrow approach to well-being, mainly focusing on mental well-being. And again, this is something that is being implemented across the board in different ways, which has pluses and minuses. But also you see that over time, now we have enough data to see and to show that the first implementation of these programs were not as effective as we thought. And my first question when I sit down with a new client, with a new company is, okay, what is your current offer and how is the engagement like? And a lot of times you'll hear the same answers. We have the medical insurance, we have the health insurance, we have the gym card. Great. And what are the numbers like? Oh, we don't have them. We don't measure it. We don't try to ask the right questions. We don't try to ask the service providers, what are the engagement like? So one of the first things that I always say, engagement is accessibility to a service is not engagement with that service. Because what we do with well-being, if I have to distill it into 2 words, is behavioral change.
But engagement in a way that they are more engaged in the programs that exist, or they are more engaged in actually co-creating those programs that fits their needs, yeah? Because it's also about, what they need. I mean, not everyone needs the same. I mean, probably, we have so many different employees with different needs. But also, I would say it's also a matter of communication, because honestly, I think I had several discussions also with employers who, for example, put in place very nice program like kind of employee assistance program. And honestly, I thought this tool is really perfect, but then the figures were quite low. And of course, they were thinking, what's the problem, whether it's a communication that people don't know, whether it was too sensitive and people were afraid to use those because they were not really sure that the data are protected if they call with some really major psychological problems or something like this. So I don't know, what are your observations? Where we actually need this engagement more?
Yeah, all of those.
Okay.
All of those. Mm-hmm. It's the value proposition. It's the what we offer. It's the how, but mainly it's first is the why. I think a lot of times the decisions regarding employee benefits are not really done with the employees together, but more from the place of what other companies are doing, what is common, what is accepted, what we think, meaning the HR team or the decision makers, will be best. And I think that creates sometimes this mismatch between the employer offer and the employee needs, and that results in low engagement. So I think we should start with the why. We need to have a really strong why, understand what the employees actually want, what they actually need, and then personalize that offer to their needs. And from my experience, I've seen that over 5-6 years, this results in a very high engagement with the activities. So 88-90% engagement over several years. It's quite impressive. And it's mainly because we ask the right questions, we personalize the offer, and we communicate it in a way that employees actually are interested in that.
Yeah, but also I have one thought about what you mentioned, is that also on top of this group of the current employees, which you can ask many things, I think that, I would assume that a lot of employers address all those benefits also to attract new talents. And then it's actually completely different goal to set it up.
And if we're thinking about recruitment, the best thing is to allow flexibility in the benefit offer. I'll give you a good example and a bad example. Bad example will say, every Thursday you have beer and pizza, and you can join and drink and eat and have fun, and you have bananas on the table, and you have air conditioning and all these kind of things, right? And you might have yoga classes or mindfulness, right? But then you'd say, I'm not into yoga, I'm not into mindfulness, I bring my own food. So you already excluded a large number of people. So what's a good example? A good example would be, for example, here is a time slot for a group class. You can choose yoga, fine, okay, fitness class, great, or a group to learn how to cook. And that works very well. And that's how you create inclusive benefits. And that's really, really important. And it's not very difficult to implement, but it's very important because you want to reduce the barrier of entry to the lowest common denominator, right? If you're interested in cooking, in running, in doing yoga, we have what you need. These are the steps you need to do to participate, right? Here are the pictures of the last run you had. And in this way, you create a real culture in the organization, not just another nice post for LinkedIn.
Interesting. Okay, so definitely, something you mentioned a lot is one size doesn't fit all. So you have to personalize, yes? So how to start this process in the company?
So first of all, a lot of multinationals outsource their well-being from other countries, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work in terms of engagement. And when you have a situation where it's being outsourced from other countries, usually in English, maybe you're English speaker, maybe native, maybe you're not. But a lot of times you'll see much less engagement with outsourced activities in the local market, in the local branch of a company than something that is localized to their language. But to answer your questions, how do you personalize it? That? So what we do, for example, when we send our expert to the office, so it can be a physiotherapist or a dietitian, we allow the employee to choose when to meet with the expert, let's say a specific day, but what time, how long they would like to dedicate to this, from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. We allow them to choose the type of service they're interested in. So in one of our projects that we work together with a very prestigious law firm, this has been going for 2 years, this type of service, where the employee can choose what they're interested in. So they can choose, for example, massage, but they can choose massage, dry massage, where they don't have to change anything, or massage with oil. They can choose to consult with a physiotherapist about some problem, or to talk to them about their diet or training program. And this results in high engagement over long periods of time in a company that had nothing before.
But is it, this example you give, was it offered in the working hours?
Yes.
Because I think that's also important, yes? That, if you think that as an employer, you want your employees to be happy, just happy employees, yes? So you know that you have to bring them services that will help them keep up, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, whether it's nutrition, whether it's just, some relaxation, yes, different ways. But then at the end of the day, I think it should be somehow matched in the working hours, because otherwise, just people anyway, regularly, let's say it's 8 hours per day in the office. So why should you do it with your employees from work? You have others, right, outside the office.
Exactly. It's the same companies that tell me we are not the parents of the employees. They should take care of it of its own. And then they see 24% rotation year on year. Mm-hmm. So the perspective, I think, of what is the role of the employer needs to change. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. We had projects where they were conducted in the early morning. It didn't work. Mm-hmm. After work, a little better, but not really working, right? People just want to get out of the office, right? So I think there need to be some flexibility also from the management part to say, yes, this one day a week, we allow our employees to take 15 minutes off their schedule to go 2 meters to this well room that we created and do what they want to do, right? And then these people, they're ready to come back to their work, and they're more productive, and they're happier, and they don't have as much issues. And it's a small cost for the employer to get all these benefits from just investing a little bit of time and money and budget to allow people to disconnect a little bit. If we take this law firm, for example, they work under a lot of stress throughout the year and then just can't wait to get to their vacation. Now everyone's on vacation and they don't want to think about work. But this is not what work should be. And I think with a little bit of smart planning, we can create a working environment that people are actually happy to come to work. They're not...
Especially now we really want to attract people to offices. That's,
exactly.
Of course, topic for different program probably. Yeah. So that could be actually very supportive in this process to make people work from the office.
Absolutely. So part of our campaign, Powrót do biura, Return to Office, is to transform what the office means for the employees. It's not just a place where you work. It's a place that provides service in-house. And that's really, really important.
But do you think that this type of benefits in general from the employer's perspective are for those who actually have other fundamentals in place? I'm thinking about, Maslow pyramid, yes? And I'm also thinking about memes in the internet about benefits. That there was a meme where, there is plenty of benefits, and then some of the employees ask, so maybe instead of giving us extra benefits, just maybe for this hire another person, so we are not, doing extra hours all the time, and then we don't need those benefits,
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
That's why communication is key, like any relationship. Mm-hmm. You need to be open about your expectations of the employer of the employee. If things not going well, you need to communicate that. One of the things I noticed, because I come from a country where what we think is what we say, right? It has positives, it has some negatives, but we always know what I think and what I feel. And in Poland, I notice people tend to be a bit more introvert, keep their opinion to themselves, but it's faster. It stays inside there. And then you see your colleagues working in a company where they talk about things and they have more benefits, and you can't start thinking, maybe I should check if they have an opening, right? So communication is key. If you, for example, value flexibility at your work more than bananas and pizza and those kind of things, then you should communicate it during the onboarding or even recruitment phase. My value system is like this. I have small kids at home, or mother or father, and I want to have the flexibility to work from home as well. Great. These are our offer. This is our offer, right? Or now we have another issue where maybe contrast to what some remote work supporters are saying, this is not heaven and only pluses. There's a lot of minuses to work from home. It's not for everyone. And that's the key. The way of how you work should be personalized as well to your lifestyle and your character. A lot of employees do work from home. They make a lot of money, but they say, I'm lonely. It's one of the things I wrote before about the epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think personalization comes even to the way we work at work.
Okay, so let's go now to the solution, how to plan it. And I know that you are talking about three-step approach to a successful well-being program. So tell us more about this.
Sure. So first is really to understand that, like I mentioned before, access to a benefit is not engagement with the benefit. We can't say that we sign a contract in the beginning of the year with benefit or any other provider, and that's enough. Our role is done. If the employee wants, they can opt in, opt out, doesn't matter. We have a responsibility to make sure that this benefit is something they're interested in, or access to a mental health app, right? So the company side says, I only have to subsidize a fixed rate every month, and the employees can choose to use it or not. I think that's the wrong perspective to have. So first, understand that if you have a benefit, you need to measure the engagement with the benefit, utilization rate, and if they are low, which usually they are, how we can improve that. So accessibility is not engagement, is number one. Number two, leadership, active engagement. You need to have the leaders of the company engaging in promoting internally participation in well-being programs. I'll give you an example. I work with a large bank. We had a mental health program with them. And I mentioned to them, it's very important your CEO will join the webinar and declare that he's going to be on that webinar. And he did. And 92%
Wow.
were on that webinar, right? And that's really, really important because in Poland, the model of management is more, I would say, authoritarian a bit, right?
Still.
And still it is changing, but it means that if the boss doesn't see it's
The role model is the boss.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I would say the third thing is you need to have a plan in action, right? You need to have a strategy, not just day of a health day once a year or once a month. We care about women, but then we don't. All these kind of things, they don't work. Take that money, give it to me, I'll build you a better program. And that's important. Long-term plan, and that plan has to be with asking the right questions to come up with the right plan. Imagine you go to the doctor, I'm the doctor, right? You come to me and say, good morning, right? And I just give you a pack of tablets and nothing on it, you don't know what. And you say, oh, but I didn't tell you what's wrong with me. No, here's the tablet. This is how the well-being market is operated. Mm-hmm. Now, if I
nice example.
Exactly, and then you say this is stupid, right? But this is how it is right now. So we need to ask the right questions, and if you have those three things, the success of the program is much more guaranteed, and your employees will be thankful for it. You see, I didn't mention budget, mm-hmm. right? Because budget is not that important. Even if you give me zero budget, we can work on communication channels, we can work on the content, sharing the right content, building ambassadors program. There's a lot of things we could do. And this is the first thing companies think, how much is it, right? It's not about the budget. Like any other situation in life, when you want to change your behavior, You need to start with making a decision that it's important, and then taking action, and then be consistent with that.
Any other tips you would give to the employers?
I think that you have to evolve. You have to evolve. With the change in the intergenerational change, we see a huge difference in the expectations of course, Gen Z, but also younger millennials and the older millennials and baby boomers. Expectations in what the employer should provide, expectations in terms of the value that they share. So if I know my company believes in environmental causes and helping children and all of that, maybe I'm more inclined to take their offer, although their offer is 10% less than the competition. You see a lot of banks and large institutions investing in these activities, right? It's not because of their good heart, right? It's because it serves a purpose. And Gen Z in particular are much more purpose-driven generation. They're trying to be part of something bigger than themselves. And it's really, really important. So when you come to the company, as a recruiter or as HR, you say, in here, we believe in changing the world, in doing this, this, and this. Which activities would you like to join? Right? And in this way, you can get not just more conversion and more employees, but also you get more engagement from them. And they will tell their friends, look, this company is amazing. I went to clean the forest and I went to volunteer in a homeless shelter and I do all these kind of things. And then they reward me with more vacation days. And it's amazing. So we have to change the mentality and understand that the younger generation, they want and need different things.
So from what you are saying, it's also important to add that it has to have some kind of strategic approach and not just some nice things to have, which, is a tool like one next to the other. And at the end of the day, whether they will use it or not, drop it, it doesn't matter. Yes, it's just something to put on the paper. And as you agree, one another thing, maybe my observation is that talking about the communication, that a lot of companies focus on launching the program. And sometimes, exactly, healthy week, yes, healthy mental week per year. So that's also not something that will, get them to the point where probably they would like to be with all those services.
Yes, because it goes back to the definition of well-being being behavior change, right? Now, if you're just trying to check a mark and just do this, then of course you would do something short term. But if you understand what well-being is, and if you practice it yourself, you understand it. The most successful project I had is where the half of the board were running, swimming, playing sports, actively preaching what they say. And that's really important. That's why if you really want to have a long-term change, you have to start from the top and then slowly go down, right? And I think that's really helpful. And Gen Z in particular will say, I want to be in a place where that shares my values, right? What are your values? What do you believe in? If you say that well-being is important and you work even on vacation, that doesn't really work, right? And a lot of us are workaholic. And then I meet you in a few years and you burn out and you say, okay, I want to be a consultant now, right? Because you burn out, right?
Yeah, and that's very common.
Exactly.
And the figures are growing.
and they're growing, and more corporates, because I talk to them a lot, and we're talking the top of the pyramid, and they tell me the truth, right? And they will tell you, I'm thinking every week about changing. I'm thinking about going remote. I'm thinking about horizontally change to some other position. I had enough, right? And you see it across the board. And I think what the pandemic did, it didn't create something new, but it accelerated processes that started before. So I think if we acknowledge that, first of all, and that's an important part, we can address it better. So if I remember one case, I talked to this big developer and property manager, one of the biggest in Poland. And I had a long meeting with them, an hour. They were very happy, excited, everything amazing. Okay, let's go forward. And I said, great, now I'm going to build something amazing in different cities. I got excited. I was young. And then they said, okay, we'll do one webinar a year. Right? And I think the corporate approach to well-being is what destroys well-being. So we need to understand that with well-being, you can't approach it like any other topic because it doesn't work this way. Right? And At the same time, you need to speak in a language decision makers understand. So one of the things that happens in well-being, it's a very soft topic, right? So to draw a line, a correlation between I invested 100,000 zloty and I got 200,000 in return on investment in terms of productivity or less sick days or something, that line is very important to show the board, to convince them. And I think part of Wellbeing 2.0 is to back up and to support what we do with data and statistics, not just NPS or satisfaction that doesn't mean a lot, but real data that shows, listen, we need to invest this and this because our condition is bad, and this is how we're going to do this. And when I come to the director, the CTO, the CEO, whatever it can be, and I show in the data, they usually don't have a lot to say. Right? So in one hand, you need to understand well-being is something more than that, just another corporate topic. But at the same time, you need to speak in a way they understand through data, statistics, and understand those reports. Because that report, the Oxford and all of those, and I tried to look for the methodology, I couldn't find exactly how they assess mental well-being. And a lot of times, if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers. So that approach is very important as ESG becomes more prominent, and DEI and CSR and ESRSS2 and all this kind of evolution of these regulations, we have to implement it and translate it in a way that people actually understand.
And in line with the new reality, it has to be real and not at the paper.
Exactly.
Or thank you very much for this discussion. Very interesting. And hopefully now, after post-COVID, maybe it was, doing in a rush, but now people really will get more mature in these matters, get more knowledge, better tips from the experts, and they will really choose this, path, to go more strategic, tailor-made solutions and something that really serves their people, because if that serves their people, the people will serve well them.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.